Hello and welcome. I am very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today about a topic very close to my heart, that is cancer and spirituality. My name is Kathy Boley. I work as a chaplain at the Ohio State University Medical Center. I provide support specifically to breast cancer patients and their families in Columbus, Ohio. I've been a chaplain for over 20 years, working initially in the hospital setting and in the last 11 years at the Stephanie Spielman Comprehensive Breast Center. If you have tuned into this channel, it's likely cancer has impacted you, or maybe someone you love, or perhaps both. My hope is that you will find some helpful encouragement and inspiration. So, as I said, I'm a healthcare chaplain. I wanted to take a minute to explain what that is, as you might not be familiar with the role of a chaplain, or perhaps you may associate us only as part of a traumatic event in a hospital setting. So we are the spiritual care specialists on the healthcare team. We focus on the way that illness, crisis, and/or grief impact the spiritual life of patients and families. We help provide the whole picture. Essentially, my role is on our oncology team is to provide emotional and spiritual support for patients, folks who come in with appointments in the outpatient cancer clinic. This is where you meet your doctor. You might receive your infusions, scans, blood draws, radiation treatment. I hope, I bring a calm, non-judgmental presence and a listening ear to meet you right where you are. We all know well that a cancer diagnosis and treatment have a significant impact on not just the person diagnosed, but the whole family. Chaplains know that this impact can go much deeper than the visible eye can see, and that the spirit can be hurting in much the way our physical bodies do. Spirituality can be tough to define. If you ask 20 people what is spirituality, you'd probably get 20 different answers. It might be hard to come up with one that we'd all agree, but I was hoping to try. Spirituality is deeply personal, but also communal. It's all about connection. Some of us grew up with an awareness of a connection, a source of strength and comfort, something beyond ourselves. We might call that something God. It's a connection and a source of strength, often within our family, within our community, and can be felt in the natural world. This source of strength is also something within ourselves that we can connect with or sometimes feel disconnected. Some people did not grow up with any awareness of spirituality or a language about it, and others did. Spirituality can feel like a balm, a sigh of relief, or heavy, like baggage for some. It can come with triggers or comfort. Through the eyes of other cultures, languages, and worldviews, we might all see spirituality with a fresh lens. For the moment, though, this is the definition I want to work with. So if it reflects our deepest connections, so how might I experience those? In church, perhaps, with loved ones, or as I said, in nature? Spirituality reflects our core beliefs and practices, what it is the thing that brings me hope and peace of mind. It's how we live out our purpose. Think of people who might have chosen a profession where they work with children or the elderly, or these are the things that drive it drives people towards a purpose in life. And especially when life is hard, it's what brings meaning. The language of spirituality can change over our lifetime as we age, as we experience suffering, loss, trauma, as we grow deeper compassion for strangers, as we experience new capacity for love and joy. Change isn't always welcome, but it is pretty normal. This is what growth looks like, in fact, and it has seasons that feel maybe like the bleakest winter or like a spring super bloom. No matter your religious upbringing, whether you currently identify with a faith tradition, feel more like a spiritual searcher, a cancer diagnosis can hit hard and leave you struggling. When it happens, you realize it truly can happen to anyone, even those we might think of as perfectly healthy, or someone who makes good choices about their food or their weight or their exercise. And when we realize that it can happen to anyone, it's a feeling of vulnerability, and that is hard to accept. After the shock of a diagnosis, it's not unusual to struggle with questions like, why me? Or why now? This is a video not about answers to those questions. It's about considering your tools and how to grow them, becoming empowered to embrace a journey that doesn't have easy answers or certain outcomes. So this somewhat simplistic diagram, drawing, um, it does really help us to sort of remember how everything intersects. When the body is sick or in pain, we can see that in other areas of our life. We don't think as well, and our spirits get down. Just like a mobile over a crib or a wind chime, when everything is connected, it's all impacted by one piece. So when the body is undergoing treatment for cancer, the whole self is feeling it. When I don't have the energy, for instance, to get the kids up, to get them fed and off to school, it really threatens sort of my sense of purpose and my goal to be an amazing mom, to not let others see me struggle. That might be what we wish, but our bodies won't allow it. So these kind of add complicating layers to feelings of distress. Cancer is both an outward journey and an inward journey. While your physical body and brain are probably being dragged into the work of the cancer treatment plan, into the infusion room, into the surgery appointment, setting up a time for that. The spirit is doing its own hard work, like trying to find some meaning in what is happening. This may feel like deep distress, anxiety, panic, sleeplessness, wrestling to return to a sense of order and control over the chaos, or that illusion of control. That whole roller coaster of emotions can happen all in the same day. The healthcare team will try and prepare you for many aspects of treatment that can cause distress, like hair loss or fatigue, taste changes. They'll give you tips on how to manage that. But you may feel unprepared for the experience of spiritual distress. It's not something that people talk about. And I think what's important to know is that spiritual distress, although it may sound like a bad thing, or like you've made a wrong turn, or like a personal failure, it's not. I don't see it that way. I think of spiritual distress as an unavoidable part of the human experience. If I'm going to have surgery, I'm going to have pain. Those things just correlate, and I'm going to have to think about ways to manage that. Um, just like driving on a familiar road when it's a really foggy day. We had that here in Columbus just yesterday. Everything looked different. It felt surreal. But the thing to remember is the fog may clear tomorrow. I may need to slow down today and get my bearings. It's definitely unsettling, but it's not the end of the story. So, yes, this is my dog. I asked a friend who was a few decades out from her cancer diagnosis and treatment, and I said, how did your breast cancer impact your faith? And she said, oh, my faith in God, it just deepened tremendously. It was a real blessing, a silver lining. So I said, well, was that at the very beginning when you were diagnosed? And she said, well, actually, no, not really. That actually took some time. So it's a good thing to remember. That's not realistic for every day. And it's really quite a process. This February will be 18 years from my own cancer diagnosis. So I can fully understand in my own way that this is how cancer makes us feel pretty vulnerable physically and mentally, emotionally, and sometimes spiritually. It takes time to feel safe in our bodies again. Feeling safe is spiritual work. How do I make peace with this vulnerability, living in all this uncertainty? I feel bruised, a little beat up on the outside, and worrying if I'll get stuck here. So the question I ask is it possible to allow those unpleasant feelings to help you explore what you do need? What might be missing? Do you need to ask for help? Do you need to talk with somebody who understands? Do you need a meditation buddy, a prayer buddy, an exercise buddy? A lot of good processing and inner work happens during a walk or a run or time when we're actually sweating and moving our physical bodies. Do I need a walk in the woods or in the garden to get my hands dirty? Do I need to sing in the car at the top of my lungs? So we have a sanctuary space in our breast center with a prayer bowl. One day I came in to find a patient sitting there. She had progressed through her current treatment and was starting a new trial drug. She'd placed her chemo pills. It looks like an altar, doesn't it? Next to our prayer bowl. And we sat together and talked about what it felt like to live in uncertainty and how to let go, what that meant to her. I asked her if she'd heard of the Serenity Prayer. It says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. She reminded me that we need these symbolic acts sometimes, that placing of those pills in a symbolic way, which allows us to re-engage our trust, to embrace hope, to dig a little deeper in times of fear, uncertainty. So uncertainty is also a necessary part of life, completely unavoidable. But what if it's okay to sit in that uncertainty? What if that is actually the path to trusting again? What if this process of the outer process of clearing out all of the cancer cells from your body could also be a journey of self-love and self-care? Cancer creates a complicated relationship with our bodies, and some cancers in particular threaten parts of ourselves so deeply connected with intimacy, with nurturing, with identity. It can bring up all sorts of love, hate type of feelings with our bodies. So, one of my favorite authors and poets, Andrea Gibson, who is living with advanced cancer, wrote, I made a new kind of peace with my cancer diagnosis. I know this because I recently fell asleep in the PET scan machine. Andrea describes 2 years ago hyperventilating with fear during that scan, which became the first of many. Hyperventilating all the way to the car with such dread, and to now have fallen asleep. How did I change so much and so quickly? How did I learn to love the me who at the time hadn't changed at all? The me who worshiped worry, the me who turned my wounds into microscopes through which I saw the worst in people, especially myself. This is how I know for certain I do all of my growing during the times in my life when I am offering compassion to the parts of myself that have not yet grown. I never once managed to shame myself into a version of me I loved more. Another way to put this comes from Viola Davis, who is a well-known actor. She said, I have a great deal of compassion for other people, but mostly for myself. What a gift. This can look like asking for help when you have unmanageable side effects, when you can't maintain that superhuman schedule while completing 30 rounds of radiation. No one needs you to suffer more, not God, not nature, not your family, not your friends. If you need to ask for help, let someone know. Spirituality is all about connection. So, especially all those who received treatment in the decades before us, before there were better drugs for symptom management, they would not want us to pass on all of this. You are allowed to care about yourself enough to say, I need help. So I found and collected a few tools for nurturing your spirituality. These are some suggestions, and I'm sure that you could come up with more. It's healthy to grieve your losses, and unfortunately, cancer brings loss, a loss of independence, maybe even driving for a short time, a loss of clear-headedness. They may not be permanent, but even short-term, it's scary, and it can make you angry, and that's okay. It's okay to feel the anger. Doesn't mean it's going to last forever. It's okay to embrace the openness and the self-discovery, to be curious about what you're going through and how it's impacting you. It's important to nurture a relationship with the new you. The old you was pretty familiar and comfortable, but we are invited to growth, and this is one of the ways. Nurture that relationship with others who can support you. So maybe it's another cancer friend going through the process. Maybe it's a support group. Seek out spiritual resources like prayers or poetry, podcasts. I've come across so many things that I never would have found without being open and curious. Maybe a different way of seeing your own religious service, that mass that you attend, or maybe even sitting in a different place gives you a new insight. Share your journey and find creative ways to practice your spirituality. So if we see this as an invitation, as an opportunity to embrace and explore your own spiritual journey, what would that look like? I don't have a map for you, but I can share that some of the most important tools, as I've mentioned earlier, are self-love and self-care. What do you want to nurture? What do you need to nurture? What is it that you need most right now? Maybe hope. Maybe you're in the midst of, the thick of treatment, and it's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe some closer connections to your faith community, to support group, to spending time in silence or alone in um, welcoming renewal. It's hard not to judge a process because it never happens fast enough. There will continue to be times when we feel lost. I like prayers that move me. I like hiking and biking and walking and gardening and meditation. This was a trip to Arizona when we went to see some wild horses out, and my daughter caught that. It was really a spiritual moment. Coming to the end of treatment or any particular part of a treatment plan is both wonderful and often terrifying. And a lot of times families and friends don't realize that. I talk to a lot of people who are in this place, who've come to the end of the treatment. They're living in the land of worry and feeling a bit lost. What now? So inviting them to consider, to exhale, to consider the next part of the cancer, that inner work. You're not coming in, you're not doing the outer work of coming into the building as much or showing up for appointments, but the inner work is really sometimes just starting. And it's just a time of recovery and restoration and practicing exhaling. It's okay to be scared. We don't snap back to the person we were before. You will be anxious to feel normal, and your loved ones will want you to be okay, to look okay, but it will be slower than you will wish. Healing the mind, the body, and the spirit, it takes time and practice. Silver linings, finding the pearl, being open to the good that might come out of a struggle is part of a spiritual process. We recall that there is strength in weakness. Some people might describe it as seeing more clearly what really matters, being more attuned to gratitude, feeling a deepened faith, finding a new purpose, perhaps learning how to not always be the caregiver, but to let others care for you. That's a muscle that so many people have not practiced and feels awkward. Maybe teaching your children resilience. It's not how you wanted to teach or what you wanted to teach them, but they'll need it. So as we close, I want to just remind you that you can be grateful, as I mentioned in the previous slide, and still grieving. You do not have to choose. You don't have to force the gratitude. You don't have to choose between one or the other. Those feelings will continue. It's been 18 years and I'm still trotting the path, remembering to nurture my spirit. It is also a muscle and a practice. And what I need still changes from day to day. But I still need to nurture my spirit. No matter if you are newly diagnosed in treatment or a year or more out, you are still in the midst of your story. You are still becoming. And the gift I would give to you is may you be empowered to write your own story and continue to see that it is evolving. As I said at the start, I hope that this may be an encouragement for you, that you will feel empowered to care for all of you, not just get that good rest or put lotion on that skin while you're going through radiation. You need all of that. But also to think about those other pieces of you that need to be cared for, that you will feel empowered to care for all of this and ask for support. We live in a beautifully diverse world, and you are beautifully unique. No two cancer journeys are the same. This is your journey. May you find a listening friend, maybe a chaplain, a wise elder, or a religious leader, or maybe somebody who's been through this themselves. In the words of an artist I really enjoy, her name is Kelly Ray Roberts. She writes, "So whatever you may be celebrating or grieving, may you practice courage every day and let it nurture your spirit, however weary or uplifted it may be. For there is hope in our celebrations and strength in our brokenness. May you embrace your own sweet surrender with faith and courage along the way." So I wish you a blessing. I wish you comfort on your journey. And I hope that this is something that you can come back to when you need it, and that you feel loved and embraced. Take care. Thank you for joining me.